Okay, why don't we begin? Welcome, everyone. We had some great conversations yesterday during day one of the conference. Today is dedicated to industry-specific topics, and the topic we'll be covering in this session is marketing. We have some great panelists for today, but before I introduce them, a couple of housekeeping notes. During this panel discussion, you can submit your questions via the chat function. We will ask your questions as they come in if there's a good fit for the actual topic that we are currently discussing. But we'll also save some time at the end for a dedicated Q&A period. If you have any tech questions or concerns, please let us know via the chat. And having said that, let me introduce our panel. First off, we have Nicole Mason. Nicole is an accomplished growth marketing executive with demonstrated success in developing and implementing strategies focused on customer acquisition, engagement, and retention in digital and omni-channel environments. Nicole is the owner and founder of One Mason LLC, a marketing consulting and executive coaching firm. We also have Jeanette Ferris. Jeanette is a relationship builder, communications and marketing professional with over 15 years of experience in the areas of marketing, community outreach, branding, and public relations. She was most recently the Chief Marketing Officer at Club Fit, a luxury health and fitness club in Westchester, New York. And she's now the new founder and chief cheerleader at Pause, a marketing and PR firm dealing with nonprofits, philanthropic companies, and educational institutions in New York. We also have Paul Balo, one of our adjunct faculty here at SPS. Paul is a seasoned executive with a PhD and substantial experience overseeing the full range of digital strategies and driving change across diverse blue chip firms, including MasterCard, American Express, GE Money, Citibank, and the Federal Reserve of New York. Lastly, we have Caridad Munoz, a former student of ours. We welcome her back to our SPS community. She is currently serving as a social media director at LaGuardia Community College. My name is Carlos Chernisky, and I'm consortial faculty here at SPS, and I will be moderating this session. So welcome, everyone. I think to start off, I thought it best to start off with a quote from John Wanamaker, who was an early pioneer in marketing back in the 1800s. And he was famous for saying, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. Digital technology has brought about many advances. It used to be that a chief marketing officer would go into the C-suite meetings and say, I need $10 million for the next year's marketing budget. And relatively speaking, he or she might get that money. But now they're being asked to justify those dollars. And by that, we mean that they're asked, what is the return on investment for that spend? The advances in technology have allowed marketers to track the marketing campaigns that they endeavor to. Every click, page view, time spent on a web page is being measured so that a marketer can measure the return on investment. And the question I have to start off is, this has meant also that the advertising dollars have been being shifted from traditional advertising of TV, radio, and print to more digital dollars. And the question I'd like to start off with is, do you see this trend continuing and accelerating more so? And perhaps you've seen examples of it, if anyone.
Hi there. So I can go ahead and answer that question. But first off, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be with you all today. So to answer your question, we will definitely see marketing dollars continue to shift throughout the coming years. Especially right now in this particular year, marketing budgets have been cut drastically. And many companies are being asked to do more with less. And you have to be really strategic. So when you're going into a leadership meeting where you're buying for dollars, it becomes very tricky to say, this is how much we're going to get from this and get from this, because at the end of the day, you need to be clear about what are your goals and objectives. Are the campaigns that you are driving, are they acquisition based? Are they retention based? What is it that you are trying to do? And do they align with the corporate, initiatives? And then from there, you select the right marketing tactics that are going to drive the customer acquisition, the sales, the engagement, the retention. So I think we do a lot of dancing around when it comes to advocating for our annual budgets, because you really need to say, okay, if our goals are acquiring new customers, which fall within the millennial, target audience, then I need to invest more dollars in social media, in doing collaborations and partnerships, and those types of partnerships or tactics cost much more than we're saying newspaper, which we're definitely getting away from anything that is print based. Television still continues to drive more awareness, acquisition, and engagement, even if we're moving that into the digital spaces like the YouTubes or, Netflix or any type of advertising in those spaces. But it definitely is brands being asked and marketing departments being asked to do more with less, and having to be really clear about what the goal and objectives are so that they're able to deliver.
Excellent job, Nicole. And I just also wanted to add to that. I feel very honored to be here as well. Wanted to just piggyback a little bit off of what Nicole was just saying. And I think digital campaigns and budgets are so important, and especially understanding, as she mentioned, goals and objectives are crucial. And in addition to that, focusing in digital, especially on a niche market, would be so advantageous for organizations and companies right now, because you can target specifically to the niche market that you're going after and speak directly to an audience and be able to calculate ROI on that.
Now, I would like to add to that. I actually think in the current paradigm we're in with the virus, I actually think from the data and the research that mail, that old clunky thing with the mailman and the person coming in, I have seen significant increases in ROI with mail. And the reason for this is the fact that everyone's home and they're now happy to get something in the mail and no one's using the mail. So if you're actually putting your marketing campaign together, historically, if you told me 5 years ago, it's just all noise. And I know in my house, when I drive down to the mailbox, it doesn't even make it into my house now, right? But now that there's a virus, I now have more time to look at the advertisements because I'm not getting out as much. And I think I'm getting overloaded. Most people are getting overloaded on digital. So I think just for this period of time, I think that mail works out very well and has the best ROI that I've ever seen in the last 15 years, only in this period of time. I also think in terms of ROI, I think most marketers really need to become math majors. I don't think you can just go into the boardroom and say, hey, I need $10 million. I remember when I was at American Express, had people asking me for $100 million and $200 million for the black card and the titanium card and things of that nature. And I was happy to give it to them, but show me the math. If I give you, my expectation is if I give you $1, I would expect $1.50. But a lot of times, if I gave you $1, I don't know what happened to my dollar. So I think marketers overall really need to come to grips with the fact that we should be like PE firms or VC firms and build the algorithms that allow us to really turn on the investment. And what I'm seeing actually is the new wave of really where digital marketing is going is not in your traditional levels of marketing, not in just doing Google AdWords, but really in esports gaming. Esports gaming is really the litany at the current time because of the coronavirus, that it is the largest growing sport in the world. So when I talk about digital gaming, I mean all the people that are in their basements playing games globally The profile of these people are that they're spending over $2,700 a year. It's a $112 billion industry. And the idea of actually advertising and marketing is actually to advertise in the games. So if you're driving a car and you're passing a sign in the NASDAQ or NASDAQ in a stock car racing, that a sign may be Coca-Cola. And everyone watching these games will actually see that. And it's literally larger than basketball, baseball, and football combined. So one area where we have to start thinking about digital marketing is not your traditional, I'm going to buy Google AdWords, but you're really going to have to start thinking about, how do I market into esports? And then the funny thing is the fact when you look at NASCAR racing, you can't do NASCAR racing. But what they actually now have is NASCAR live drivers driving virtual cars. And it looks like the real thing, and you're getting massive attention and advertising, even though there's no car. It's all virtual. And the other thing you may want to also look at that I would advocate is looking at Twitch. Twitch is really the broadcasting mechanism for all of these sports. Amazon bought Twitch for $1 billion about 7-8 years ago. So those are some of the things when we're talking about, being a marketeer and a chief marketing officer and executive marketer, we have to really be thinking digital, not in its traditional sense, but think about all the cool stuff, right? The esports stuff. And then I would even start looking at drone racing. I don't know if you ever had an opportunity to look at drones, and they have these big, massive drone rallies. I mean, some really cool stuff going on with that. And the cool thing there is, and I forgot if Jeanette had mentioned this, is these niche, or Nicole mentioned these niche markets. For very little amount of money, a company could own the entire industry for drone racing, which has double and close to triple levels of growth. So this is some of the things we have to think about. But I'll leave you with the fact that marketeers really need to be PE firms. They can no longer come in and ask for money. They have to come in and earn the money, and it's really an ROI.
And so just to follow up on that, Paul, in terms of advertising and drone racing, do you see this as a good fit for any kind of brand or specific brands?
So it all depends. That's a great question. It all depends on the audience. So like, if you look at NASCAR racing, most women watch NASCAR more than men. So hence the reason you're seeing in these sports, and even in real sports, you see laundry detergent, not to be sexist or anything, but you see M&Ms, you see laundry detergents, you see, certain specific types of race cars. In drones, it's predominantly 50-50 from the last research I've seen. It's more of a techie type of person. The profile is also a person who's a high net worth individual. So there are certain companies that can easily go in there, such as a MasterCard, an Amex, a Microsoft, a Google. But the Fortune 5,000 companies could easily go in there for a little amount of money and own the entire thing. I mean, you could brand a drone, right? And then the cool part is you could actually when you're actually flying the drone. And when I talk about, has anyone seen these? I mean, they're going like 100 miles an hour. I mean, this stuff is off the charts. They sound like a bunch of bees. But if you see it the first time, I think actually there was a race in New York City. But it was like, before the virus, it was absolutely packed. So to answer your question, I would have to, it depends on the race and depends on the location, depending on that product. But it's an easy entry into really this sort of online, offline world of marketing. Right. And once again, the pricing far outweighs the amount of attention, observation, and data points you're going to get. The eyeballs you're going to get are off the charts for such little amount of money.
Yeah. Caridad, let me bring you into this discussion. We've talked about some unusual ways of marketing, such as the drone marketing. In your capacity as social media director at LaGuardia, is it a straight shoot in terms of who you're targeting? Maybe you can discuss a little bit about your day-to-day, who you're targeting, what kind of budgets you're dealing with.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I hope the drilling let me concentrate and talk. Sorry, boys. My neighbor started drilling today, so the situation we have to deal when we work from home. So a la Guardia, I mean, right now we're looking into how we can incorporate more trends into our approach to recruit new students. We know that nationally, right now, recruitment is pretty low. So we're looking into how we can attract our audience, prospective audience. And one of the things that we are doing is like trying to amplify our digital assets. Like, what can we do that it will be more interactive to our students? We're looking into voice search. We know that there's a lot of, more than 41%, of the audience, they look into like Google search, Alexa, and it's like how we can use some of those trends in marketing to address the new population. And in terms of budget, we know it's very limited at the moment, but we are using all our resources kind of like to look into how we can, be created in this type of situation right now. But we definitely, we are doing a lot of different campaigns using Google Ads, Facebook advertisement, and also reaching out to different target audience. We know that right now people are working from home and they are taking classes online. So we have to change our approach to our students and make it more broad. Like anyone can take classes right now from anywhere. So that's some of the things that we are doing, and the team is like looking into how we can create more interactive way to attract our audience right now. And voice search, definitely AI, augmented reality, by doing campus tour, something that a student can like see that we're still connected. Like even for an open house, for an admission, how can we give the human experience to the students?
Okay, thank you for that. We have one question that came in from Prudence Pitter. For students coming out of school and starting a business, say consulting, where should they focus their limited marketing dollars to be able to attract clients and start to generate revenue?
I'll take that one to start it off.
Sure.
I think the key is really don't. I think the first thing is when you say you want to start consulting, find an area that you're really good at. Don't say I want to consult or consult in marketing. Find a niche, find an area that you're better than anyone else, find a competitive advantage, and just spend time calling people. I don't think I would do some really low level guerrilla marketing and start with one client. But really get all your materials ready. And the marketing I would do is get a really good website, get a really good marketing pro forma, meaning what is it really you're going to do? What I've seen most students trying to start companies, they're all over the place. They have no focus and they're like every shiny object, they go all over the place. So don't just chase the money. Find out what you are good at and start building that brand. I've started 10, 15 companies. And 99% of the people say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I always said, why? I just want to do one thing really well, right? Only one thing. You can make millions of dollars doing one thing really well. Don't get distracted with all this other noise. So spend your money on understanding what it is that you're trying to do and get that word out. But don't make it like all things, right? Don't be like the Swiss pocket knife and you can do all this stuff. Be one surgical instrument that when this problem comes up, you're the person to call. So spend a little bit on a good website, not much. Get your, maybe get a, like a brochure going. But I would really just start calling people and let them know you're aware of what you're trying to do. And find a niche that no one has ever really thought about. There's so much going on with this coronavirus that people are going to need a lot of help. So, you might want to be thinking about you're the great hope of after the virus to help small businesses to grow revenue. That is one big, massive, massive global opportunity. And I've yet to see anyone title themselves as the marketing expert, post coronavirus.
Right.
I also wanted to add to that. Thank you, Prudence, for your question. Yesterday, we had a conversation and one of the panelists was talking about how important it is to network. And so in harmony with what Paul was saying about getting the word out, I would start specifically with the network that we have already, that the person who's starting the business has, because people do want to see you succeed in life, especially when they know you and you're taking a new venture and creating your own business. So starting with professors or your peers, fellow coworkers and things of that sort will definitely help with getting the word out. And especially the website will definitely help really understanding who you are as a company and what you provide. That's a differentiator to people who will seek out your services. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Janet. So,
oh, I'm sorry, I just want to add one thing.
Sure.
I will get your first client. If you start a marketing company, what I want you to do is go to sam.gov, sams.gov. They have the US government on the state, federal, local level, have massive amount of contracts. You could spend your entire company just being in the SAMS contract world. And all you really need is an interesting website with a clear competitive advantage, and then with a real email, and start bidding on some of these contracts, because the government is going to have to help these small businesses. So you don't even have to go crazy looking for customers. This whole panel group just gave you the entire US government as a potential client. And you could just register at sams.gov. You could go on it today, register your company, and start looking at all those contracts.
Thank you for that tip, Paul. So I want to follow up on the introductory question that we talked about, how digital dollars, advertising dollars are shifting to digital, which represents a change. And yesterday in our inaugural day for the conference, we talked about how the purpose of this conference to begin with is how business is changing, certainly marketing is changing. So how else do you see marketing evolving besides the shift in dollars being spent? What do you predict could possibly happen in the next 5 to 10 years in general for marketing?
I can tell you what I see from the executive boardroom. I don't see CMO level jobs being around. I also don't see chief technology officer jobs being around. What I see is chief digital officer jobs and chief data officer jobs. I see that the chief digital officer would run marketing and technology and own the customer. There's going to be marketing, but a true marketeer, I'm finding in the boardroom, is really someone who has to understand data, digital transformation. So a traditional CMO, and I have a lot of friends who are CMOs. I mean, I can't see them having a job in 5 years. They don't listen to me. I think they have a shelf life, because I think Candace is smiling. I'm not sure if I hit a note, but it's people have to get ready. I mean, if you don't have data and you don't have digital and you don't have analytics and you don't know technology, I think your career is over.
You know, I think this is a good tie-in to, and I'm sorry, Janet, do you want to speak? Jeanette? Go ahead.
Oh, me.
No, I think that was a valid point that Paul was making in regards to data and how important that is, especially with technology right now, being able to really understand the numbers, facts, and figures, because you have to be able to fight for every dollar that you definitely get. And so with the way that technology is going, I personally feel that having the brand presence is going to be so important in the future. I really do feel that being consistent with your messaging is going to be key and important. I do believe social media will continue to be a game changer in the field with having a marketing, and credibility will be important as ways to communicate.
So Paul, you were talking about data being very important, and you don't see a chief marketing officer, you see more of a chief technology data officer in the future. What about for students that are about to graduate or recent graduates? What we're talking about here is quantitative skills, right?
Yeah, I think it's quantitative and quantitative. I think it's the ability to drive decisions, and the ability to drive decision is based off of data.
Right.
So, I mean, think about when you're buying a car. I don't know if anyone just, says, I want that car. Most people do research, right? So I think it's like 99% of people go to a website and look at what car, either maybe Consumer Reports, but they look at what car is reliable, what car is dependable, what's the horsepower. So these are data points that help you drive a better decision. So I don't see how leaders in marketing are going to make decisions without understanding the data. And what I mean by that is, who are the customers? Like, what do they look like? What do they taste like? What do they do? Where do they live? Where do they come from? This is all data driven. And then when you get enough data and you go do your digital profiling, then there's something called next best action. So when someone's on your website, you don't want them just to be static, right? You don't want to have this huge bounce rate. You want to figure out what the next best action is. And then you really want to try to find out the holy grail, which is this sort of, omni-channel, which no company's really figured out yet, but to have this dialogue with an organization the way you want to have it. If I want to chat with you, or I want to text you, or if I want to call you up, I want to have one uniform conversation. It's almost like I wake up, I see my wife, I kiss her good morning, and then we have breakfast, and she goes off to work, I go off to work, but I might text her. But the conversation is consistently going. It's not like, hi, good morning, every time I reach out to her with a new, channel. And
Right.
most organizations are really bipolar in the sense where you go in, you talk to chat with them, and then you may walk into the store and they're like, hi, how are you? And you just realize you spent an hour chatting to the person. You may email them. So this whole concept of omni-channel has to come into place, and the underpinning to this is all data. So there's no way that I see, when I look at the information and the jobs of the future, I don't see how anyone's going to survive without having any data analytic background. I just think it's really hard.
Nicole, I heard the word omni-channel being mentioned, so I assume you want to jump in?
No, I want to piggyback off of what Paul said, but I want to make it this, my feedback tangible for undergraduates or entry level marketers who will be entering the job market in the next couple of years. I agree with Paul that, having the ability to analyze data and make informed decisions is clutch, right? Because you want to have a clear perspective and add value in the workplace. So that is key. But I think a lot of the big conversations that we're having in marketing departments now, as leaders and looking for talent, is all about skill sets. And there's a conversation between being a marketing generalist versus being a subject matter expert in search or CRM or within email. So my recommendation is definitely make sure that you get internships, more than one. Really figure out what you like, and pick a lane. Pick a lane. And once you pick that lane, really dig deep in it and, get curious and understand, all of the things about, that particular lane, understand the data, understand how your customers are behaving. What are the different tactics within that, that area of focus, so that you can add value. Another way to, kind of show that you have this level of experience when interviewing, it is when you're in internship experiences. If you're developing a campaign, recap the campaign. Really understand how it performed. Really take a moment to sit down with the data, the insights, the information that you've gathered. Look at the competitive landscape and come up with your perspective. It does not have to be right, but as long as you have a perspective, that is valued. And that is something that could be beneficial for a company and be palatable for hiring managers when looking for new candidates.
Thank you, Nicole.
And Carlos, may I add also that data privacy is something that when we work on the digital and social media, it's still a pretty big issue for us. So, and we know example from the Cambridge Analytica, what happened, and for consumer data privacy is still a big important goal. So any organization was still gonna need, someone to enforce data privacy, to enforce data regulation, and to enforce how other, third-party vendor use the data that you gather in your company. So
yeah, that's a great point, Caridad. And you were reading my mind, because one of the other questions I had for the panelists. So we have this issue of privacy, And we hear a lot about data being used, obviously, in marketing, but to a certain degree, what we do hear about is the data analytics is being used in the context of larger companies. And I guess the question I have for you folks is, to what extent do you see this dropping down to the small or medium-sized businesses being able to leverage the technology and utilize it for them? Do you see this already happening, or it's still to come?
I can tell you, I see this happening as we speak. I built a whole system for MasterCard for small businesses, for their advisors,
Wow.
taking all the spend data, helping the local pizzeria, the local brewery, the local, shop. And that's where there's a huge opportunity for students to really go in at the local level to help some of these companies. Like most companies, if you have a gas station, right? They may not know who their clients are. They may not know how to advertise. They may be very profitable, but they're so busy running their company that you can literally pick up probably in a week 1 or 2 small businesses to help do all their marketing. I mean, and I think Nicole had a very valid point. If you're trying for an internship, go get one, right? And if you can't find one, go volunteer. You could go to New York City Volunteer and just get some stuff on your resume. And if you don't want to volunteer, just start your own company. But don't just say there's no jobs out there. Work can be created. So either go find an internship, go volunteer, or start your own company. But I will tell you, my phone rings off the hook for companies looking for advice. They just don't have enough brain power in terms of what's happening with this virus. So if you go outside, you see your local deli owner, if you see, a hairdresser, they probably don't really have time to do marketing. You could be their CMO for that company.
Yeah.
There's huge opportunities out there.
Right.
Just got to go do it.
SAS, Microsoft, and Kaggle, they all offer affordable, options, cloud-based data options and solutions for small businesses. So, to Paul's point, there's a lot to be done. Small business owners need to prioritize where they're focusing their time, but you need to work smart and make sure if the goal is to scale, that you're starting to use that data information that is readily available at you at each of the stages to continue to grow.
Thank you, Nicole. So far we've pretty much legitimized the fact that change is very, very prominent in marketing, perhaps most than any other business function. And our country is changing too, right? We're facing challenging times. And let me pose a topic of discussion here. To the extent that socioeconomic trends should be being monitored by marketers, we have a growing wealth and inequality that's pervading our country, and it looks like this trend might continue in the near term. So the wealth and income inequality is one thing, but we also have issues with global diversity and inclusion. What is your view on how marketers are addressing this? Is there room to improve? Either in terms of not necessarily for employees and who they're hiring, but also maybe their consumers, their customers.
Yeah, I'll help you. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think there's issues throughout all these industries. I mean, perfect example is if you have an amputee, right? An amputee goes into a shoe store and they have to buy 2 shoes. There's finally a company that just came out and said, hey, you could buy 1 shoe. Now, my feet are crooked, so I wear 1 shoe more than the other, right? Or some people have a big foot and a small foot. They now let you buy a big shoe and a little shoe, or they let you buy a right shoe or a left shoe. So there's a huge misconception of diversity, I think, across most industries. I think the LBGT group, I think that's just a huge, massive, massive opportunity. I mean, massive. It's so untouched. I mean, there's no one that I know of that's doing a really good job in that arena. So I think people have to be more open-minded that their customers aren't this type of person. I think it's a whole big broad brush. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters if you have a really good product and a really good service and doing an unbelievable job of taking care of your customers. I don't think that those models transcend any race or color or anything. I think people are looking for really good companies that are honorable with really good products that actually add value, not just stuff that, breaks after the minute you buy it.
I also wanted to add to that in regards to global diversity and inclusion. I think there's so many opportunities for us to do better and for us to learn and continue having conversations in regards to this. I'm happy that you guys had a panel yesterday speaking directly on this, so kudos to you. And I did read something recently that said that 64% of consumers took an action after seeing an ad that they considered to be diverse or inclusive. And so that was very suggestive to me that we need to be considering everything that we put out there. And to one of the points made earlier, we do have to really understand our audience and target them specifically and speak to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. And that's really key in trying to get to understand our audience and really developing content that's specific and will relate to the audience we're targeting.
Right. That's actually a good segue. Listening to your audience and being in tune with them. Empathy is a major force, I guess, in human connections, and it's also used in marketing connections. Let's be honest. To what extent do you see brands using empathy as a response to COVID? In the near term, when the dust settles, all COVID. Do you actually see brands incorporating a message of empathy in terms of like healing? How might brands sort of adopt that or co-opt that feeling for associating with their brands?
Right. So, 2020 has been a doozy of a year, right? We've had a global pandemic. We have uprisings in major cities. We have millions of people out of work. We have working parents who are homeschooling. And let's just be honest, they are not okay. Yeah. So there is a lot that we are experiencing right now. So, I think there are some brands who are taking the lead and have already gone out and developed campaigns that really empathize with us and help us to really think about things in a different way. And we're seeing, campaigns being positioned so differently. One in particular that I'm thinking of is Instacart. They are buying to, working individuals or those of us who are at home, who are working, are parenting, are trying to clean homes, or trying to run a busy day. Half the time we can't fit in going to lunch or eating lunch or going to the bathroom. And the thought of thinking of what you're going to have for dinner or what is going to be delivered, it can be glooming. And then you look at your kid's face and you're like, okay, I need to spend time here because that is truly what matters. So, I saw that with Instagram on empathizing with those of us who have a lot on our plates as we are not being able to compartmentalize our lives, like everything is pretty much, smushed together. The other brand that I love that brought some humor to the table was Apple. In July of this year, they did the sequel to The Underdogs, which was like a mini series where it was Apple at work from home. It was great because they were promoting all of the tools that Apple provides, but it was in realistic, situations. It was a group project. They were working on a presentation. You had the divorced father who had the kids for the week. You had, the ambitious woman who had cats and all she was doing was strategizing all day long. You had the boss who gave little to no detail about what she wanted and everybody had to guess. And ultimately how they delivered. And it was all of those things, how you work in a group, how you're talking over one another. It was great because it was real. It was what we were all experiencing, but also educating us at the same time about, okay, of course I don't have my company's printer, scanner, and all of the things at home. However, I have all of these Apple products and I can be just as productive. So to answer your question, Carlos, I do think that we have some brands who have started to take the lead on really adjusting their messaging based on the time that we're in. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of that coming into the holiday. Case in point, it's going to be all about family. We do see the COVID numbers increasing, right? College and universities like Duke are encouraging their students not to go home.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of commercials or campaigns that are speaking to, embracing family or celebrating the holidays from afar, but still feeling connected, really pulling on those heartstrings a little bit because, we've been doing Zoom parties, but are we zoomed out? What does holiday 2020 look like this year? And I think that we're going to see some brands take a stab at, bringing that to life and empathizing. And let's all be honest, these brands are also trying to make their fourth quarter goals. So after a crazy year. So, I think they're really going to try to just really hit home with those things so that they resonate with the customers.
Thank you. I want to shift our conversation and wind down in terms of careers and careers for students. And I'd like just to pose it to your panel. What made you decide to pursue a career in marketing? Caridad, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, thanks. So my background is computer science. So I started as a backend developer, and I would say I didn't have like a great experience when I first did my first internship opportunity as a backend developer. And as a female going into a developer career at that time, it was pretty tough. So my first internship was at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and I was the only female working at a department, and it was pretty uncomfortable. And that made me kind of like think about, oh my God, what would I do with my degree and how would I pursue my degree later on in my career? So that got me thinking into going into, different paths, or like, what about the digital marketing? What about the design marketing? And I went into pursuing more like the front end developer, more into the digital. And also that got me into pursuing my passion of getting more female into tech. When I started, being an adjunct, I was a very fierce advocate for more females, in technology and working into being developers. So that got me thinking into something that we can change to get more female into tech and everything. So having this career as a digital and my whole combination has been a blessing, because I get to play with the both system at the same time. So I really enjoy what I do right now.
Thank you. Do we have, I think this would be a good time to open up the audience for a Q&A. Do we have, please type in your questions. We do have one question that came in. What advice do you have for someone looking to transition into marketing careers? I'm referring to those who already have professional experience in a field other than marketing.
I'll take that. I mean, it doesn't, so I think the thinking has to change. I think everyone thinks because they did A, it doesn't relate to B. Your hardest part's really going to be is, what did you do? And for you to tell the story how this relates to marketing. Right. So education is a great way to sort of give yourself a new brand of who you are. You're getting a master's in marketing, getting a bachelor's in marketing. So it's not that you can't. I mean, mind-boggling to me that, people think because I'm in one industry, it doesn't apply to another. The hard part is what is that story and how do you bridge the gap from what you were doing before to now? It does help that you have a really solid story. It does help that you could show on your LinkedIn if you're taking like a MOOC, a free class that you're interested in marketing. It also helps if you're on LinkedIn and you go into our conference here that you actually say you've gone to the marketing conference. It's a matter of like brainwashing people to let them know that this is the direction you want to take your career. I think coming to, getting your degree at SPS in marketing or your master's at SPS, it really goes a long way. Doing projects and really making the relationship of what you've done in the past, how it relates to marketing. And I wouldn't say marketing. I think that term in my personal experience has been so broad. I think you have to really say marketing, digital marketing, or analytics and marketing. You have to really fine tune it to what you may be thinking about. And one area that's growing significantly is something called design thinking, which really hits on to what Nicole was talking about, bringing in the data, bringing in the analytics, and bringing in the empathy. There's a whole world, like I'll tell you right now, there's not enough people who have that marketing background and also the data background and the empathy background to start looking at how customers really need to be treated. There's a whole world that takes your past experience and your marketing background and sprinkle in some data and digital background. I mean, you could have a career in design thinking probably for the next 15 years. And it really goes into what is that experience, because a lot of companies make you do a lot of stuff that adds zero value, in my opinion. I mean, when you were able to take the train and you got a Metro card, does anyone know what the first thing they ask you to get a Metro card? If they ask you what language, I mean, that is just a waste. It's 8 million people every day being asked what language. Well, it's the language of digital marketing. Anytime to me, that's basically a waste of a lot of time. So what digital design thinking does is take marketing and makes these processes extremely efficient, so people don't want to waste a lot of time. And this is going to be one of the top areas in marketing because of the fact of the coronavirus. Things will not be the same. Yeah. Restaurants will not be the same. All industry and business models are radically been impacted. So you're really going to, what Nicole said, I agree completely about the customer experience and making it better. So I think if you have a career outside of marketing, it's your job to make that linkage between what you've done to what you want to do in marketing. But I don't think you can really just say marketing. I think you have to sort of get a more defined brush here.
Right. And if I could piggyback off of that, because I get this question a lot from those who are seeking some advice and guidance. So the first thing that I want to say, Shannon, is that it may take some time and it may not come easy. Sometimes I think that we can oversimplify things and say that it's just relating your current skills to what marketing is. But I think we need to just take a couple step backs and think about it this way. Like, where are you working now? And is there a marketing department? So wherever you are, is there anything, what can you be doing to work closely with that team so that you can start to build experience or a portfolio of having marketing experience? I agree with Paul. Okay, marketing is broad. So which part of marketing do you want to focus on? Brand marketing. Paul mentioned design thinking. I like to put that under the product marketing category. I've worked in product marketing for the Macy's tech organization, and we implement design marketing. There was no concentration for that when I was in undergrad. There isn't a master's program. I had to go and get a master's degree in innovation leadership. right? To bring in a different skill set, a different way of thinking. And I'm working very closely with the technology organizations, the product management teams, to promote new goods and services. And it all doesn't work all the time. You know, we're just reiterating, you know, we have a whole agile process that we go through. But ultimately, you know, just to bring this back for you, just figure out the area that interests you. Figure out how you can start to either increase your knowledge about that area. What assignments can you take on? What side projects can you do to set up your portfolio? Also talk with your network. And let them know that you're interested in these areas, and back it up with the work that you've been doing on the side. And I think that you'll start to see some, you know, some progression of getting leads and being able to transition into marketing.
Okay. Thank you. Jeanette, you have some final comments?
I can just add a little bit to that,
Sure.
because I actually, after I graduated from Syracuse, I went right into public relations and worked at agencies in New York City doing PR specifically. And then what actually happened to me is that someone saw inside of me an opportunity to go into a marketing department and start there. And so sometimes when you're just showing your skill set, others will see things inside of you and tell you like, oh, you're really good at this. Maybe you should look into, you know, a certain avenue. And so I would just say, listen to those who talk to you and network, and similar to what Nicole said, just outreach and continue to grow, because it might not come as quickly as you think it will come. And I worked my way up from marketing assistant to CMO. So it definitely takes time to do that, but you can pivot.
Well, thank you, Jeanette. And thank you. That was a great piece of information to wrap up on. This has been a really wonderful discussion, a rich conversation, as somebody just typed in the chat. I want to thank Nicole, Jeanette, Caridad, and Paul for a wonderful discussion. And we hope to see you folks again for another round of this sometime soon. Thank you all.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeanette.